आओ कोई ख्वाब बुने कल के वास्ते, वरना ये रात आज के संगीन दौर की डस लेगी जानो दिल, कुछ ऐसे कि जानो दिल ताउम्र फिर न कोई फिर हंसी ख्वाब बुन सके. That's a beautiful couplet from my favorite poet of subcontinent, Sahir Ludhianvi. Sahir has wrote wonderful poetries, not for only for the Urdu and Hindi literature, but he also wrote for the films, and all those lyrics are very immortal. They are rooted into our ethos, into our culture. That's why Sahir is unique. Hello and namaskar. You're welcome into yet another weekend rendezvous with Sheetalnath Conversations. Today is our 88th historic show, and I hope you all are enjoying your Sunday very well, and across the globe in the different time zones. Uh, I am indebted to all the lovers, admirers, and followers of Sheetalnath Conversation. Our anecdotes have become very famous among the diaspora, and this show is basically, this has this profuse, approbation by the people, not only the diaspora but also by the people across different sections of intelligentsia, who are interested into the anecdotes, real stories, wonderful, amazing stories, and research based insights on history, on ecology, on flora and fauna, on color, on culture, on literature, on treatises, on travelogues, on chronologies, chronicles, on the people, the hustle and bustle of towns and the cities and the vicinities and the streets and the bridges and the waterways and the peaks and cliffs, on the sociology, on ecology, on archaeology, on architecture, on musicology, on legends, the past, present, all the wonderful aspects and dimensions of this civilization, known always known to be, time immemorially known to be, the cradle of Indian ethos and Indian culture, Kashmir. And I think it's a wonderful day today, and we are going to talk about roots again. Shitalath Conversation, till now, till our 87 episodes, we have been talking about the roots, and roots are very important as per our integration, as per our personality of the contemporary human being is. Roots was basically, it became very popular and fashionable after that Alexander Halle's that novel, Roots, story of a saga of an American family. So that came in probably 1976, and we also know that wonderful classic, 100 Years of Solitude. So Roots have suddenly became fashionable, but Roots is always there. It enriches our mind. It builds an esteem. It gives us grace. It connects us to the culture, to the history, to the environment, who we were, who we are, what we have become, and how should we go ahead, propel ahead in this entire reservoir known as life force. So that's how the roots is very important, and I feel all of you somewhere down the line love to look back centuries, to the decades, to the millennia in which we meander around in Sheetalnath Conversations through an episode after episode since last 2 years, bringing in very, very great luminaries, public personalities, with a very candid, informative, integrated, honest, insightful narratives, stories, and anecdotes. You must be knowing today's theme. It is all about this Indian Kashmiri diaspora in US, a long century. So we all know that the present day Indians in US, they constitute a very, very strong community of rich and educated class, in this one of the richest country and powerful country in the world, because as a consequence of their hard work, their intelligence, their expertise, and they have the sensibilities to help the diaspora back home in India and other causes of the communities around. So that is how it is. But coming, if we I mean, have a peep at the back, we can say that in 1790, actual people, the first people who came went from India to America were the Madrasis. They went there as a workers. I mean, some sailors, some kind of captains of the ship through the sea route. They facilitated them, and then much far away was 1980, where around 1,000 people, 1,000 personalities, 1,000 persons of Indian origin, who were the travelers, who were the missionaries, they were or the sailors, and they were the merchants also. So they went to America, settled over there, liked that environment, built their edifices, and from generations to generation, their generations are there. And if we talk about 19 mid to 1965, around American immigration laws, they were changed to facilitate coming of people, and whole lot of people from the Asia and other countries went to America. And after that, we can know that during the Vietnam War also there was a human resource crunch in America, and that's why they recruited doctors, professionals, and engineers from India and Asia and Asian countries. That's how the story goes. But today we can see I mean, our Indians are scattered, spread all over America in the major cities, and they represent all the aspects from engineering to medicine, to education, to research, to business, and all kind of things. We had our conversation with very, very eminent persons like Subhash Kak, the great scientist and the great engineer, who is a professor, and he's an Indologist, very famous Indologist. And then we had Jivan Jutsi, the great entrepreneur, and we had Rakesh Koul, the author. Everybody knows about. He's in the picture nowadays. And we had then Sudha Koul, the first IS officer from Kashmir, who wrote The Tiger Ladies, who was in United States of America. And then we had Aarti Kaul, and she was a great singer, and a Nightingale of Kashmir, who settled in the United States of America. Many more people from England, Dr. Angela Shah, and others. But the story unwinds like that. There are a lot many people in America whom we are proud of, and especially the Indian diaspora, the Kashmiri diaspora, has a very great connect with the people back home. Our today's guest is a very, very special personality, Dr. Archana Kokroo ji. She is the present president of Kashmiri Overseas Association. That's a conglomerate organization which represents a socio-cultural. She connects connects community through the social cultural endeavors, and it is into the philanthropy, helps the natives back home, and does many, many more things, which we'll of course know during the descent of this program. She is by profession a physician, and she has studied, I mean, done her residency in internal medicine at Temple University at Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Langhorne, Pennsylvania. I don't about to spell that name. So she is a very, very busy professional into her profession, but at the same time, she has a very tremendous passion and obsession for the social work, for the social cultural integration of our folks in the United States of America, and she is into many, many, many arenas. It is her obsession, it's our passion. She is into the human interest, engaging herself for the philanthropy, connecting people, bringing the personalities of who maestros, from literature to art to musicology, to the people who have done excellent work in the different walks of life, in the different fields, different enterprising fields around there. She's a very, very well respected and well known personality, because being she was elected second time as the president of Kashmiri Overseas Association because of her very deep interest and endeavor in the social work, which she does flawlessly, and probably she's very respected and revered and admired everywhere. And probably she has her roots from the Shupayan, the landscape, the rapture, landscape of beautiful landscape of orchard land of hills around Shupayan. And but she was born in Kashmir, in Srinagar city, and she has studied in the very prestigious institution like Melanson's Girls School, and she has been part of the Government Medical College, Srinagar, which is one of the most reputed institutions in the state and the country. And she has her stories. She has been the part of lakhs of us who migrated in 1990s as a consequence of that horrendous night. And she has also faced her share of miseries, her share of depravity, her share of uncertainty, loss of identity, and many other things, many shocking things, which the entire migration, you know, I mean affects, impressionates to the people who are migrated. And but finally, she in 1997 she went to the America and she studied there, and finally she is a very well-known professional. And before we invite her to the show, I would like to have a wonderful quote by Diane Merrichild, who says, she's a very well-known author, everybody knows about her. A woman is the full circle. A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create. A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, nurture, and transform. So, with that wonderful spirit, we'll invite Archana ji into our show. And let's all welcome her with great admiration, affection, and reverence.
Namaskar.
Archana ji, you are welcome into the 88th Sheetalath Conversations historic show.
Namaskar, Jugalji. That was a very generous introduction, a long and very kind words. I am a very ordinary person, just trying to do the best I can and the best I can do to help my community. I'm extremely impressed by the fact that this is your 88th episode, and
Yes.
you have named a few of my much revered colleagues and seniors and mentors here in the United States, who I am very close to. Our community here, although we are kind of, United States a large country, we are very close to each other, and
That's right.
and just by the fact that I get a privilege of speaking with or being connected to our diaspora here and in the other countries, I have had the opportunity and I've been fortunate to have one-on-one relationships with all these
That's so
folks.
what. So
All
wonderful
these
people.
folks that you have mentioned, some of them are my close friends, some of them are my mentors. So excellent. And I think Sheetalnath conversation, what it has done is that it has brought the entire community together on one wonderful platform where you can actually relate your beautiful and wonderful memories of the past and weave it into a tapestry of storytelling so that it tells so much about our culture just by our conversation, that is your conversation. So I think it's a such a wonderful format that you have created where people can relax, they can sit down, they can talk whichever way they want to, and not with the pressures of a interview format,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
then you have to be scripted, you have to really actually know what you're talking about. God forbid you say a line here or there, you'll be reprimanded. So this is not like that. This is something that I can sit down here, I can talk through my heart, through my feelings, through my sentiments. So that is why it is a wonderful format for people like us who are not, I would say, great in any aspect. We are just ordinary people, but it's the ordinary people who actually do great things sometimes. And our stories probably connect to most of our peers, our families back home and here. We have the
That's
same
so.
common stories.
Yes, we are something great about is that we look ordinary, but we are extraordinary in every way. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have. I'm very thankful that you praised Sheetal of Conversations, and you have given so much wonderful description of Sheetal of Conversation. And yes, certainly, I feel that people are more and more across the globe, and now the younger generation as well. They are liking it, and that's why I kept this language. We can speak in Kashmiri and Hindi in between, but I have kept this language simple English so that it is communicable to all the people around the world, especially our youngsters who are not connected with the language and other things. and also the people who are into the research on Kashmir. Thank you very much once again. It's a great privilege and honor. Archanaji, you came too. It's your magnanimity. I'm really grateful once again. Namaskar once again. And let's begin with the first segment of this program, and that is, we talk about the roots and what these roots are. I haven't been able. I'm chasing this word from day in and day out, and every time there's another explanation. But this is beautiful. It's an exploration. And first segment, we'll go to the Kashmir. You're born in Srinagar, and you have a roots in wonderful place like Shopian. I have been to that place. My Masi was there, and you belong to a family of Lahoris and Hanjuras, and Lahoris are very well known from Shopian. They are our relatives as well, and Hanjuras. Who doesn't know Hanjuras? And this you have the roots in Shopian. That is one great aspect we would like to understand and know what is your memories and reminiscences about that. But yes, we want to know about your city, Srinagari, built by Ashoka the Great around 300 BC. How the city was when you were there in your school, in your college. How are the fests? How are the institutions? Who are the people who inspired you? What was the all story? What are the anecdotes? The happiness, the joy, the shades, the wonderful times you spent as an adolescent till finally the migration happened.
So, it was Kashmir was beautiful part of my life, of everyone's life. But
Yes,
growing up there was an entirely a very organic and a wholesome kind of a way of life, which these days, our children don't really have. They grow up in a very different culture. But when we were growing up, it was a very happy and free childhood.
yes.
I'm always reminded of, the simplicity of Mark Twain's writing, the adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, when they took pleasures of just, painting a fence, that was the highlight of their life. That's the kind of life we had back in Srinagar. So, as you mentioned, I have roots both from, Shopian, which is my paternal side, my father's side. We are from Shopian. And my mother's side, they're Hanjuras, although they, also from Hanjura, a village very close to Badgam. But I was born and brought up in Srinagar. So I had connections with both. I was very close to my parents' side. I used to visit Shopian very often. And of course, I lived in Srinagar. So back then, for me, it was natural to, from, let's say, during the days, Monday to Friday, I went to school. And then weekends, or maybe every other weekend, we would just hop on a bus and go to Shopian, stay with my grandparents for a couple of days and come back.
Oh, so great.
So we were like I said, that we were very much in tune in going both places, like city and Shopian. Um, I was very close to my grandparents, both sets of grandparents. Both my parents worked, so, and they were posted in remote, as remote areas, villages and stuff like that. And so they decided early on that for me to have a good education, I need
Yes.
to be in the city. So my grandparents, Mr. Dinanath Hanjura, and my grandmother, we called her Sanjigri, they lived in Srinagar, in the city. So I shifted to my grandparents.
Okay.
I went started Mallinson School, I think at the age of 4. And so I used to stay with them. My parents were posted different places. Either they were in Pulwama or they were in Bandipora, all those places. And they used to visit me. I used to visit them. And then there was always this excitement of going to my other grandparents, in Shupian. So I had a really, if you can say, a very wholesome childhood. And I moved, from one grandparents to other grandparents and to parents. So the influences of my life are certainly been this kind of environment. So I can easily understand um, suburban, I would say, environment, also the city environment, and also the influence of elders in your life.
Yes.
and how much I have learned through them. And I always say that the best influences I had in my life has been through my grandparents. Um, One set of grandparents was my, Nanaji, who was an educationist, Mr. Dina Hanjura. Education, he was a reformist. He had himself been educated in Banaras Hindu University. He had done his, BSc in Banaras University. Came back to Kashmir. Was part of the freedom movement with Gandhiji. A real, pragmatist. Was himself a teacher, and he taught me. He was literally, I think, one of the best educations that I have known. I can tell you, he was proficient in so many languages.
Okay.
Persian, he was in literature, you could discuss anything with him, math, science, everything. He would quote Tolstoy, you know, Wordsworth, whatever you wanted to discuss, Lallavak and stuff. On the other hand, my other set of grandparents, they were my grandfather on my father's side. He was one of the most kind personalities that I have ever known. He had in his younger years, he had also, taken care of his younger brothers, their families. And at one time, my father says that they would have about 40 to 50 people for every meal in their household. It was a very large household, and they all
Oh,
lived in a very connected, respectful way. And even when I grew up and his brothers had moved on, they had built their own houses and stuff. It was a very, very close relationship. So much so that when I go to India these days, I literally, if I have to visit, there are so many relatives on both father's and mother's side that I never get time to do anything, because I have been so close to both sides of the family that I think that it's my obligation, and sometimes, of course, my love for them, that I visit them in Jammu, in Delhi, in Chandigarh, as you say, Pune. So we have literally a large family, and that's true for here in US. I think my cousins now who have moved in this country, there are so many of us, and God bless all of us, that I we have a large family even in US. And that's because of the connections my grandparents had developed, my parents had developed, and then they continued, and then we have continued in this country. And we have maintained those relationships, and we hope that really that connection is carried on by our children, so that they know how it is to have a family, um, behind you, because
mm,
family is your support, it's your support system. And that's what has sustained Kashmiris now that we are scattered throughout the world. What has sustained us is these relationships, these connections, and how we come to each other's help anytime any one of us needs it. So those connections are extremely important in our lives. The other aspect of my life that I certainly would like to talk about is, of course, like I said, that my parents, both of them, were working, and they were often in our younger years posted in places which were, far and remote. And I have two younger sisters. And soon after they started, like they became a little bit older, then
mm.
my parents decided that it was time for them to move to Srinagar as well, because then they needed, to go to school. And both of them, of course, followed me to Mallinson School. And they themselves would they would travel. Both my parents would travel long distances, but
Okay.
at the end of the day, they would come home. And whether it was late at night, I remember my mom would sometimes reach home at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, because she had to travel to places. But we were there. And at that time, our family was our neighbors then. So
Okay.
our neighbors who were like, you miss Path Brontes Rosan. In Kashmir, there was one thing that uh, our house was connected to every other house. We had a gate towards every house. So it was a thoroughfare. So if we were alone at home, our neighbors would come and check on us to see if we are safe, if we're not doing any mischief, until our parents came. So in a way, they have been a part of our lives, like our parents did.
Yes.
And so like that's what the environment these days is tragically missing, you know. The our lives, when you say it is a village which raises a child, which is absolutely true of my childhood. I was raised by not only my grandparents, I was raised by neighbors. When my parents were busy doing, you know, their work, my parents would come and check on us, me, my sisters, to make sure we have done our homeworks, we're not getting in trouble, we eat, and so on and so forth. So their contributions to our upbringing is immense. Making sure that we stay disciplined, you know, that's also important when you are growing up. And they did have that kind of, and they had the right to do it, you know. These days you cannot interfere in anyone, even sometimes
Yeah.
you hesitate. But back then that was a norm. That was a norm. Your neighbor could reprimand you if you were doing something wrong. They would come and tell you, it can like the curtain, you know. And it was we respected them so much that we of course had to listen to them, right?
It was like a larger family. Neighborhood was like a larger family, big family.
Big family, big family. We used to have fun together. And one of the things that, you know, growing up, we used to say next door as neighbors, well, they were just like our, there was a joint family. And the grandfather and the grandmother were just like our grandfather, grandmother. And they used to, when our parents, I remember one time, there was unfortunately a death in the family, and my parents had to go for a couple of days. And this grandfather, we used to call him Pitaji. He literally moved into our house and he said, "I'll sleep here and watch you guys." And he was with us, and he did that many times. And that's why my parents had that at the back of their mind, that it's okay to leave my children back home because there are people watching out for them. So that security, that sense of security, is what's missing, I think, in today's world. And we were so fortunate, and we took it for granted at that time, that was a norm for us. Then going to my school, that was another big influence on our life, the lives
Yes,
of.
tell us something about Melancons. How is the
Absolutely.
Melancons like? Because nobody till now has been talking about. We talked about Presentation Convent, all the senior ones, middle ones, and the younger ones, from Archana Jalali to Aarti Tikku and Professor Indu Kelam. All the generations came, but Melancons we didn't have any snapshot of what Melancons were.
I'm the first one from Mallinson. It is so it is definitely something that I'm going to talk about, and what a great school it was. Although, I mean, there were two wonderful institutions in Kashmir back though. I mean, obviously Presentation Convent and Mallinson. What really, I mean, the education both places was superb. We received excellent education either ways you would. What really set Mallinson apart was the importance of physical education, and how that basically molded our personalities. So
Definitely.
we had a boys' school and we had a girls' school, and the boys' school, of course, was Tenel Biscu, and we were Mallinson. But the activity part of it was not really different. I mean, we used to go for cross countries, we used to go for trekking, we used to compete with the boys. We had sports days together,
Tracking
and
to
so
Shankaracharya.
Shane,
Shankaracharya.
the lots of trekking, I'll talk about those because those were the most favorite memories I
Okay.
have from Mallinson. Is that I was a very avid climber. I used to go at the drop of the hat. You would tell me, "Aaj Shuga Sunyor," I would be the first person going.
Mountain
So
girl.
says Gasan, so we used to have three or four outdoor trips, and some of them were for a few days, like camps we used to do. So Shankaracharya was a 1 day trip. Then Pari Mahal and Zabarwan was 1 day
Ah,
trip.
beautiful.
But we used to go to camps. One was when you became a little older, like you were in eighth or ninth grade. We used to go to Mahadev. We used to do a trek to Mahadev. I've done Mahadev twice. And then we used to have a camp, seventh grade onwards. We used to go for 5 or 6 day camps where you used to go for like long treks. So I've been to Sonmarg's glacier trek. I've been to this Usmarg. We used to have this, there's this Peer Panjal range,
Great
Tatakoti.
Punjab.
Yeah, Tatakoti, that trek. And we almost started that Baltal trek to Amarnath, but we had to come back because it rained. There was torrential rain, so it was unsafe.
Busy
So
roads. Climate.
that those are the activities that set us apart, and because it made us very confident, and we confident that we can indeed overcome challenges, although these were small challenges. I mean, trekking, but yes, during those trekking trips, things could get very dangerous. So you had to be pretty sure and on a very steady footing that you want to do these trips. Other
Alertness, level of alertness, awareness.
amazing, and they used to encourage us. I mean, apart from doing other cultural activities that we had a full we had a staff of full cultural directors. We used to do Bharatanatyam, Kathak. That was a daily. Yeah, we
There
had.
were the trainer. There were the trainers of Bharatanatyam and Kathak there.
Absolutely. We had
Oh, that's so amazing.
Sanyal sir.
Wonderful.
Sanyal sir used to be a dance. He was himself a performer. He had, I think he had taught, he was taught by Pandit Birju Maharaj. And in
Vijay Maharaj.
fact, Birju Maharaj ji came to our school one time and he
Okay.
gave us lessons for a few days because I was at that time training for Kathak.
Oh,
And so
that's
he
so.
came and he gave us some training. So apart from those aspects, dance, drama, we used to perform every year in Tagore Hall. And we used to do drama, Shakespeare, we have done Macbeth, and all those dramas, and that used to be the highlight of the year. And that was with the boys school, so that was an extra added excitement we have to do. And so drama, dances, even cooking classes, we used to do painting there. And this was a day to day because every day in the morning, and the other highlight for that was like in the morning you had to read testaments, the Old and the New Testament.
Old
one
and New
hour
Testament.
1 hour in the morning, we used to have an assembly in the morning.
Your
And
school, your school is situated in that church. That was that old church. It was
it
converted.
started out as a church, but it was behind the boys school, and then they had done extensive construction. It was
Reconstruction, but
very
originally
large.
it was a church. Yeah.
Yes. So yes, it was a small church at
Because
that.
I had an old snapshot of that church with me. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it was, obviously behind the boys' school. So in the morning,
So
we used to have
Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, trekking, wonderful. And you to go to
cooking,
the fests. Let's talk about the fests, festivals,
the festivals in the school.
school, and yeah,
Yes, yes. I mean, like I said, that the school was, we used to have cooking competitions and everything that you could think of. And the motto in that school was to be faithful in the least. And that still sticks to me. I mean, whatever you do in life, do it
okay.
consistently, do it faithfully, be faithful to your friends, be faithful to everything in life, and then things will
That's so
become.
important. That's character building. That's the character building.
That's character. And that's where people, like I said, that those values that you imbibe while you're growing up, they stick with you. And that's what makes you the toughness, sticking it out. Because later on in my life, I would be tested many times. And that stuck with me, that no matter what, if you have taken a responsibility, you have to stick it out. You cannot make excuses. And that is where it comes from, my school. Festivals, I mean, we were like, as any Kashmiri family, big thing was Shivratris, of course.
Shivaratri was a very
And
spread over
Shivratri,
festival.
we used to go to our grandfather's place in Shupyan to have Shivratri. Now, for little kids, it was like there were two things that stuck out. One is that we used to have a Guruji come, right, for the puja. But in Shopyan, we had like my grandfather's. There was this small, like 8, 9 houses, the family houses, his brothers and stuff. So it was a tussle who gets the Guruji first. And so everyone used to call Guruji in the morning, "Ki myon gar hi se ye se baj, myon gar hi se ye se baj."
There were very
And
few gurujis around and
yes, so
not
we
many
had
places to attend on.
we were lucky to have a family Guruji who used to only do the puja in our
Puja and
clan, I would say. And my grandfather always used to tell him, "Ki Mich garasmas tea, sure, mion gadi, tuman bicharan chuk, batakyon, jaldi easy. So it used to be a torture for the little kids to wait for 4 hours until he would finish the puja. But the next day would be wonderful because it was a large family. Lahoris were a huge family. So
Lahore is
we used to get Herat Kharch, right? So we used to go to every house in the morning. It was like 8, 9 houses, right?
all the children together.
Yeah, it was like 15, 20 of us.
Gang.
15, 20, we would go to every household and we'll say, Herat Kharch, Herat Kharch. So at that time, I remember there were like these new 2 rupee notes had come out. And
European.
and my grandfather's brother, he used to have this big wand of 2 rupee notes in his pocket, and he used to stand on his door, "Patosani Divan Zuzurapi," and the kids would be ecstatic. They must.
2 rupees in those times meant a lot of
I'm
lot
telling
of.
you, we would be ecstatic, as smell as hair skirt. So at the end of the day, we would all sit down. That is, I say, Shupianas months, we had every brother had his own house, but then we had a common central place which was built by my father's grandfather. That was his bird jaivan, and it was a huge house. And we all used to go there, but this Haragindan, we used to play with.
Haragindan, yes, I wanted to know about that.
Yeah. It says Gindan Haran, I think. Patasari Panun. I don't know if you remember Har Kitkenes Gindan, Sanios
I've
Panun.
forgotten, but I
Botul.
know Har was a great thing. Yeah.
Everyone used to have a botul. That used to be the master har. So then
Okay.
you would, you would say Kamson's Baz event. So it was an amazing recollection of like how celebrations used to be done together.
And there were torrents moving around in Shopian. The torrents, the brooks, water brooks
There were
in
in
your house.
Shopian was, and I'll tell you, we have had some adventures in Shopian. So the river, one of the, I mean, in our own, house, the backyard, we had a stream, right? It says Kolbutkenet, Ivan. So we
That's
used,
so beautiful.
yeah.
That
So
I've seen.
there was our ancestral home in Shopian was like a cluster of 10 houses, an old house, and a stream. There were two streams actually, Bird Call to Lakat Call. So we used to have
Vertical.
fun. There were so many chinar trees, walnut
Water
trees,
bodies where they were gushing pure water bodies.
beautiful. We used to
I
go
remember. I remember during summer vacations we used to go to the Shup. There is one village Haram nearby to
there. Yes.
Shupian.
Mhm.
My Masi's home. They had a beautiful house, and there was a torrent, and all the children would come from Delhi, Bombay, Srinagar,
Have-
and we'd play Antakshari in the moonlit nights on the torrent. पूरी रात भर अंताक्षरी चलती. Yes.
बहुत सुंदर था, बहुत सुंदर था. शोपियान के पीछे जहाँ हम रहते थे, there was a very old temple. And the specialty there was that people Shravan Punim Dochtat Karan Shad. So God forbid any young person dying in your household, the thing was that they would come and do Shad there. So Nagbal is that one, and Nagbal. So the river that flowed through that area was Rambiyar, a
Okay.
very big and gushing river, deep at times. If you
Salubrious.
if you wanted to cross it, you had to really know how to cross rivers. And luckily, from a training in the Malson School, I was able to do, and I was able to climb the mountains. At Shopian has a mountain range. I think it's Pir Panjal range. We used to climb those mountains very often. We'd go on weekends with my grandfather or my uncles, and we would go into the interiors of those mountains and have a lot of fun there.
Okay. And I mean, anything else you remember as an anecdote? Then you went to the college, and let's talk about your days with the government medical college. It was one of the most prestigious institution in
One
the
of the
state and
most,
in the country.
absolutely. And the training.
You studied academics 10+2 from which college?
No, I was 10. Mallinson was up till 10th grade. Then we went to the girls at Mulana Azad. We went
Acha, you
to
stayed 2 years in
2 years,
Maulana Azad also.
two
So
years of
any
Mulana.
reminiscence about Maulana Azad College and then the medical you
So
can tell?
Maulana Azad was a very different experience for us because in Mallinson we were free. We could wear anything, do anything, and Maulana Azad was a little more conservative that way.
Okay.
So, and not too many activities. And again, because I was in the pre-medical track, the workload obviously didn't really, didn't leave me much time to do what I wanted to do outdoors. So those 2 years were really spent mostly studying and getting ready for the med school. So I don't really, except for the fact that there was a one wall between this SP college and us, and
Yes.
that used to
That
be
story I know.
the lunchtime period. Was like, it was like on one side were the boys, on one side were the
Who
girls.
was the principal? Who was the principal during your time?
I think
Mahmuda ji?
no,
Or
Memudaji had retired by then. It might even have been Mrs. Sheikhuballah's daughter. I don't know,
anyway,
but
I have heard.
Mrs. Yeah, I don't remember. I'm so sorry. I don't remember who the principal was. But
Shamla
our
Mufti.
teachers were Mrs.
Is it Shamla Mufti?
Yes,
No.
yes, she was the principal. Yeah.
I have heard the stories from the SP college side. The cricketer team, when their ball used to go, but they were very senior kind. When their ball used to go into the college, of women's college, and they were
Yes.
very scared because Mahmuda was very stern. I mean, nobody could escape her wrath. So they were
No.
all scared how to bring the ball back. Their intentions were all very noble, but then these things happened. There was a wall in between. Yes, please continue. Yeah.
In our times, I don't know about much about the ball, but I do know that there were letters flying back and forth. So we used to we used to watch it, and that was some fun thing that it was like
All flamboyance of that age,
nice.
juvenile age, and
Exactly, it's that age. So we
exuberation,
used
exuberation, jubilation,
absolutely.
the things. Yeah.
And when the gates of the college used to open, and at the end, like 3 o'clock, the gates used to open, and you would all come out, and there was this line of boys in front of the
They had
college.
enough of free time.
I guess they didn't have restrictions, but our gate used to be closed, and it used to open at, I think it was 3 or 3:30, and then we would all come out together. You're wearing white uniform. We used to have white uniform, and it was again, it was a scene to be watched. Like, I'm sure that they should have captured that on the camera, but it was really something else.
The
Yeah.
local, you went to the local places around. I mean, going to the temples, some prominent places like on Raksha Bandhan, people used to go to the Shankaracharya, then Ramachandran, and
Exactly.
then the Sheetalnath and other
We
places. Any
so
memories?
we
Yeah.
absolutely Shankaracharya for sure. We used to go to Shankaracharya a lot.
Okay.
So, and also Badamwar on Navre. We used to go to
Badam.
Badamwar on Navre,
Navare
and also
was the
blossoms and cherry blossoms and stuff.
blossom. Yeah.
Absolutely, Ramchandran. We used to go in. We used to on Raksha Bandhan. We used to go there. My cousins there, Matamal was in this Sattu Barbasha. So it
Oh,
was
yeah.
a tradition. Yeah, yeah, it was a tradition to
We are
go
from
there.
Sathu. We are from Sheetalnath. That's why.
So exactly. So my cousins, their Matamal, my Mamaji's wife was from Sattu Barbasha. So we used to go to their house a lot. So it was, then they would take us to Ramchandran. So we used to go to that temple.
Ramchandra was a beautiful place.
It was a
Beautiful place.
beautiful place, wonderful. I remember
Picnic
going
spot. Yeah.
Tulmul was at least once or twice a year. We used to go there. And mostly, I think Tulmul, I have gone to Parbat, not that frequently because we obviously didn't live that side, but Tulmul was a frequent. We used to go there, Luchu, and
Waterway travel, waterway journey, any waterway journey. People used to go to
so
Dongas. Yeah.
I have had, again, this is an experience that I've had when I was in medical college towards the end. I think when I was doing my internship, I was given a month of service where we used to go to there are that human Rosanna in the Dull Lake. In the
Mm.
Dull Lake, there are people who actually live inside the Dull Lake. They have built their houses on, there's like some patches of land there, and they live there. So in my internship year, I was given actually a 3-month period where I, along with I think 3 or 4 other people, we used to go and we used to do, medical clinics inside. So I have traveled those areas very extensively during that period. And we have gone to every household, every little donga, every little thing, and we used to make sure ki manchu dawa even manchu zorat came on manchu came. So 3 months I have spent there, and I have navigated through
Anything,
that Dal Lake.
Archana ji, anything in med school, apart from, because this was a rigorous training, studying medicine was very hard in those times. I remember, I mean, my friends who used to study medicine, they didn't have time to meet even. But apart from your hard work and your diligence you put into the learning medicine from Government Medical College Srinagar, any memories, any reminiscences you want to share about, any anecdote?
So one of the things in med school was that and this was a time when we were undergoing a transformational change in Srinagar, right? A lot of the militancy took roots around that
Started
time.
beginning.
But in med school, I'll tell you, at least in the beginning of it, the environment there was like very, very cohesive. We had our best friends were Muslims, right? We used to study together. We used to go to the
So was the
library.
story elsewhere. So was the story elsewhere. It had started infringing in
Yeah,
slowly, gradually, the landscape. Yeah.
yeah. So that is one of the things that when you take out, but the situation had changed drastically within those years, that when we entered the medical college until we left the medical college, things were entirely different. And our principal was Dr. Girjadhar. So obviously,
Alright, wow.
there was
I had,
nothing
I
to
had,
be said.
his daughter was on my show, Tina Angela
I
Shah,
know,
to
I
talk
know,
about,
and
yeah,
I was listening to
great
that,
lady,
and I
great
wanted to
personality.
say that what a phenomenal human being. I mean, I have trained, under her. I have seen her as a principal, and I remember that when towards the end of my training, I was actually doing um, Laldet. I was in Laldet towards the end of like 1988, and she was not only was she the principal, she was also the head of the department of gynecology. So our training, she had the way she had structured the training is that I'm telling you that one of the best trained places if you have to get a good training was Government Medical College, because immediately after when we had to move to Delhi and Jammu, I felt that my skills were much more superior to even the senior residents in Delhi. The way we had been taught, the way we had been trained, hands-on training, and they expected the best from us, all our teachers. There was no slacking off. So you could not just be happy with getting just 50%. You had to do
Oh,
better. You had to do better. And so we really, all of us worked so hard, not only to be excellent in our academics, but overall also as people, as personalities, helping. Um, so one of the, I'm telling you, the anecdotes that you're saying is that I was, under training, and in SMHS hospital, there was this gentleman. So he had come for, and this was very rarely we could see, was alcoholism, right? So this gentleman is suchu admission gomutam, so GI bleed gomuts. He was bleeding. He had an ulcer. He's admitted, and then they had to do a scope on him, a scope, and he's admitted now, right? So I'm in charge of this guy. I was like probably in my third or fourth or whatever year I was doing it. And so this one day I'm coming and I'm rounding on him. So Shukaran Vadun Hema, he started crying, crying, crying. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with him. My doctor, sir, Michi Dag, Michi Huchu, Michi. And I was like, you cash. So I called my senior. I said, I don't know how to deal with this guy. So, and he was a gentleman. So, basically, this guy had hidden when I was rounding on him and I was checking him out.
oh,
Shandgan distal. So he wanted me to go away. So this guy comes and is like, "What ho rehta tha?" And he just ripped that pillow off and he's like, "Ye kya hai?" He was like, on one hand, he was being treated for the complications of alcoholism. On one hand, he's like drinking there, and the other time is that we got like basically surrounded by this angry mob of people. That those lady, so again, she needed blood. the blood bank osmosis, they could not match the blood, that she had some, maybe whatever she had, we didn't have the blood at that time. And she was like in a critical condition. And so while we were walking, we were surrounded by this mob, and they were like, why aren't you, those kind of small little things that you had. Very suddenly, the mentality of the mob can change from treating you
Yes,
like
yes.
you're
Mob
the best person, and then they will beat you to death, and those
has
kind of
no
things.
meaning
And
like
we were
this.
like, and in very, like I said, very intense but wonderful environment. We had teachers like KL Chaudhary, obviously, that, and Alagban, Dr. Alagban, phenomenal
Dr.
teacher.
Alakbar.
Yes, phenomenal teacher. And we have learned so much. And in GYN, we had Dr. Naqshbandi, we had, Dr. Girjadhar and all that. Dr. Shakti Ban,
Shaktiban.
amazing, amazing, amazing. I mean, while we moved after, the Exodus, we moved to Delhi, and I worked with Shakti Ban and the others in a clinic. And then I could see that how different they were as teachers, and as, when we worked together, they had completely different personality. They were strict as teachers, but absolutely wonderful, wonderful human beings.
You had you and I know that in med school you can't bunk classes, but everybody has its experience of bunking and
Oh
going to
gosh.
movie in a
Yeah, yeah,
group.
yeah.
Yeah,
We,
any such experience you have?
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
before med school, you when you were in Maulana Azad College, or somebody you
So
witnessed.
there were
Yeah,
two things we have done. One is when we were in 12th grade, I think 12th grade. So we all decided a science class. It was probably a botany or whatever class. So we all decided to go to see Sholay. So we all bunked. It was kind of colder weather, I remember. And there were like 20, 25 of us, and we said, okay, we'll bunk the class. And we all made some excuses, and we had to go take permission, so we all bunked and we are out. And I think it was in Regal at that time, so we went to the Regal cinema. Churi churi,
Regal. Regal was
we
good.
are all like, afraid that we are going to be caught and stuff. So we went and we are seeing Sholay. So there was this Nebrikendo Sholay who Lagomatiman blackboard aspect, no billboard aspect. So we went in there. Shivachan, vancha Sholay, vancha Sari Topkerid be. Each and Sholay he even Odgantigav, Gantigav, Gabar Singh Kari even, which is Sari Vanan. And we were like, oh, yes, isn't it Sholay nahi thi? What turns out that Shole's last week gumut's khatam. Us
Oh
khabar
my God.
picture wuchan. Magar bunk us mormut Shole khatre. And at the
Oh.
end, we were so angry at each other that why didn't we check? Ki Smoklimus. It was some absurd movie. And we were like, Asukura Yuta, so much risk we took. We will be punished if someone saw us in the movie theater. So that's
Srinagar
what.
had good theaters, but they were all filled with smoke, dingy, and all the tickets used to be sold by blackers in
Absolutely.
advance. That
And
had a tradition like
at
that. Yeah.
that time, being a student and bunking the class, going to a movie in the middle of the day with your parents didn't know, and then ending up in watching some other absurd movie when we wanted to see show, it
See
was
something
really
else. See
hilarious.
Sholay.
Was hilarious. And the other time in med school, I think we bunked the class, and we went to Santram, and we were eating chole there.
Santram. Sholay that was very
So
famous.
we were, yeah, but three of us, we were eating my very good friends.
Aluminium, these
Right. He
spoons.
used to have I think he had the best chole ever. I haven't seen, have not,
Santram was
I mean, he was a phenomenal. So, and then next to us is the teacher whose class we had bunked. Apparently, she had also bunked the class, and she's looking at us, and we're looking at her.
the.
It was like, that was another thing. Is like we're never going to
So it
bunk.
was an arrangement of convenience with
I
each
think
other.
I think yeah, she had also missed it. We didn't know it. We bunked, so she was there. So
So, I mean, anyway, we'll just come back if you remember any more anecdote because program format has also to be seen.
yes,
Archana ji, now, these few years after that horrendous night happened, where were you? Where you were in Srinagar or you were in another part of the country? And what happened? I'm not talking about the night. We all know about those gruesome stories. But how did you, I mean, just migrate and shift and transport yourselves to the city? And what were the story of those 4 years when everybody was feeling the uncertainty, losing the identity? There was a trauma. And tell us something about those 3, 4 years of yours, which every one of us has faced in those times.
So that brings me back to those years in med school when we were almost like ready to graduate. And the difference, the sea of change that had occurred between when we entered med school and when we left med school. I remember very, very clearly the months which led, like the months after, I would say, September of 1989, when Tiklalji was, assassinated. After that, there was
That
everything had
confused us.
transformed. Everything was unsafe. Everything was unsafe. So I remember, I'll tell you a few anecdotes of my own, what has happened to me, and then how we left Kashmir. So I was in Laldet Hospital those days. I did my last 6 months in Laldet Hospital, and that's where Dr. Gijay was our, principal there and also the head. So one day I'm walking towards Laldet, and there was this क्या उस बागस क्या उस नाम सु board, I forget, Tiger Hall के सामने वो बड़ी open सी जगह होती थी. So I'm walking to the hospital, and I am stopped by four men. So
Okay.
four men, and they surrounded me. चार लोग थे. And they said, and I was just like rushing to the hospital, and they said, and they literally, they put their hand on my chest and like this, and they said, Batni, uh, Zakatshi dupatta. तो
Oh,
दुपट्टा मेरे पास था, लेकिन हम सर के ऊपर तो बांधते नहीं थे, तो ऐसे
वहाँ
बोला,
था नहीं, ट्रेडिशन नहीं थी
नहीं
उधर।
तो हम लोग नहीं, तो ऐसे बोला मेरी चेस्ट पे, बटनी दुपट्टा कैच छुई, तो मैं ऑब्वियसली, तो बोला कलस पेट था, तो मैंने जल्दी से बांध दिया. तो बोला कि अब छोटे थे तो थोड़ा मे बी लिपस्टिक लगाया होगा ऐसे करके, और बोला कि ये क्या शिवुठन लगो मत. And then one of the guys tells me, like my face like this, the panchu, agar pagi pet dupto sine kalas pet the be osine rang mot mot butrave acid butis.
ओह,
हाँ, तो उसने बोला कि याद थे से बुशुस तो होई था तासन. तो मैं तो अपनी जान बचा के भागी, मतलब obviously, तो I ran away, and after that I started putting dupatta on my head. Always, I would always cover myself up. That was one thing. The other is that in December or even November of 1989, I was working in the casualty. That is one emergency room, that is casualty one. ललदत की कैजुअलिटी में मैं थी, और मैं थी और रजिस्ट्रार था, ऐसे मैं अकेली नहीं थी, देयर वर अदर फोक्स देयर, बट इट सो हैपेंड कि तिमस कमत डिनर खतर, तो आई वाज अलोन इन द कैजुअलिटी. तो मैं बैठी हूँ, आई वाज सिटिंग देयर, सो दिस ऑर्डरली जो था, सो आप जल्दी जल्दी तिम न्यू करे तो डॉक्टर साहब तो नीर सबने नेबर के, तो रोजी गेट थी, सो ही टर्न्ड ऑल द लाइट्स ऑफ एंड ही लॉक्ड द डोर. And I'm now inside the casualty, and I'm seeing, I'm just obviously I'm scared now. तो दोपन बस बेच सब करे. तो 1 घंटा भर हो गया, तो मैंने बोला यार क्या हो गया, तो घंटे भर के बाद वो बंदा आया, तो कहता है कि they were looking for the doctor here. तो मुझे क्या ऐसे why? So I mean, it is, I don't know if I should, but we used to get ladies for checkups there, right? So this was a GYN hospital, and some of them unfortunately would have a miscarriage or something, right? And they thought that we were running a clinic, which is obviously not allowed per the religion. They wanted to basically check the doctor out who is encouraging all this. And they had come with all the guns and stuff like that. And it was a very, that's the day when Laldet closed the casualty, actually,
ओह,
because obviously the report went up that there were 17, 18 people. They had come to hunt the doctor down who was doing this activity. So Girjadar closed the casualty, and we used to see our outdoor clinic inside the hospital, which was a more secured environment. And we had to close the outpatient for I don't know for how long, because then I left. Uh, a couple of weeks before we had to leave, that is in January, I was posted in labor room and delivery. So these were postings. So labor room and delivery, and I'm going, and I had to go every night from 8 o'clock to 8 a.m. That was how they had set up the. And in January first week, I am going to the hospital, and I'm caught in crossfire. Literally, I'm caught in crossfire, and I don't know what to do. Somehow, my driver, he just, you know, we escaped. I don't know how, but we did. And I come to work and I do, and I'm very shaken, of course. Next day morning, I go in Dr. Gijadar's office and I'm telling her, ma'am, I cannot work like this. Madhumaski, I was really literally killed yesterday. I cannot work like this. And you know what she told me, and that has stuck to me ever since. And she says to me, Archana, you have taken an oath. You're a doctor. You cannot say no. This is your duty. This is your calling. You have to come to work. I can only do two things for you. She said, you can either stay in the hospital and I'll arrange for, of course, you're staying here, or I will give you a driver, a dependable driver who will get you safely to the hospital. You tell me which one you want to do. And I said, give me a dependable doctor, a dependable driver,
Driver.
an ambulance driver. She said, I'll give you an ambulance and they will get you here. I said, okay, give me a dependable driver with an ambulance who I trust. And she said, okay, take a pick. And you know what? Fortunately, one of the drivers there was from where I lived. I used to know him. So I picked him. I said, I will go with this guy. And she said, you got it. For the next 2 weeks, that guy would come to my house at 7 p.m. and drop
Go
me
to
off.
the meds.
Yeah, and immediately after that, 19th happened. We were at home. I was again, I was supposed to go to work, and this started 19th. It started, so obviously I didn't go to work whole night. As everyone knows, we were hold down. We were in our homes. 20th, my father calls his friend, who happened to be a Muslim. He said the girls need to get out. And he said, absolutely. And his friend sent on 21st, it was curfew, obviously. There was curfew, and they used to, the curfew would open from 1 to 2, something like that, where people could do, their regular things. And then again, so he said, my driver will come to your house 1 o'clock. They need to be out. You cannot take anything. It should not seem like they're running away, and they should be dressed as literally with those same thing like Muslim girls. But
Wales.
absolutely. So we sat there with our parents, with our this thing, nothing with us, and
And finally, it must have been a very, very gruesome night when you reached Jammu. Finally,
we
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, please, please.
Delhi.
You want to say
So
something?
no, I'm just saying that the when we left, obviously we did not know that this was going to be the last day in
Uncertain,
Kashmir.
and yeah.
So we were like, okay, we'll go to Jammu or Delhi for a few weeks and then we'll
Come
come
back.
back. Parents stayed back, of course. And we came out, and I don't know if you remember, there was this incident in ये तथी में UN building में एक firing हुई थी.
Ah,
उन्हीं दिन
yes.
में हाँ firing हुई थी. So that was, our driver was taking us to the airport through that, and we got caught in that crossfire. So
Oh
somehow
God.
we escaped that also. That was the UN, they attacked the UN building. And somehow we escaped that, went to the airport. At the airport, the pilots refused to take the plane off because they were like, this is too dangerous. We don't want to do this. So somehow Home Ministry got involved here and there. Finally, we landed in Delhi, and that has been the last day I've been to Kashmir. I have not visited since. So, yes, memories, flashbacks, nightmares, whatever you call it. Like every person has their
As is our,
story.
this is our, and then later on it becomes the exile consciousness. It remains with genetically from generation to generation. It travels. It has happened all over the world.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
very traumatic experience. I'll talk to these questions at the end of the session.
sure.
But quickly, just quickly, we have to go to the main subject. Just quickly, Archana ji, I would like you to tell us something about, because Jammu was no doubt a Karam Bhumi. It was Karamburi for Babi Kashmiri Pandit. That Jammu was like another mother to us, another motherland to us. But
Absolutely.
we all were uncertain. Folks, I mean, hordes and hordes of people. They filled in the Jammu roads, and there was no accommodation, and everything was not in a honky dory situation. People didn't have money, uncertainty, and everything. Tell us something about it, and then your role as a doctor, what you did there in the camps, and later on we'll go to the main topic. Yeah, briefly.
So Jammu, my parents moved to outside of Kashmir in probably April. They didn't move out immediately. We left in January. And one of the memories that will always stick in my mind is, like, we came from a reasonably decent a middle class family. My both parents were working, and both sides of the family was literally they're well to do. And then my parents end up in this one room place because there was no accommodations to be found. One, it was literally, it was not even well constructed, it was not constructed, there were like bare cement walls with a one window, and they just got that and they had to move in there. So in July or August, I went to Delhi, and but in July and August I wanted to come and see my parents, and they would not allow me to come. They would be like, no, 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 so me see you, we'll come and visit you. So, but no, 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 babe. So one day, like I kind of literally without telling them, I came in to Jammu, and I come there and I see my mother. She was at that time when she was in Kashmir, she was a TO, like she was an education officer. And I see my mother and I'm like looking at her and I'm like, she's covered from head to toe with rash. Literally, I couldn't recognize her. Head to toe with rash. She has lost enormous amount of weight. And my father has suddenly grown from, like, they were hardly in their late 40s at that time. I'm like, who are these people? And I start crying. I see them and start crying, which is, I'm like looking at the room. It is really cement walls. And I'm looking and I'm seeing, how are you living here? Look at you. The same room had kitchen, bedroom, everything was one room, right?
Small dingy rooms and
Same, yeah. So I'm telling my mother, what is wrong with you? She's like, no, 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 whatever, whatever, the punch. But it was heat rash. It was in Jammu, living in small room with kitchen there, and you are going to develop heat rash. What else are you going to develop, right? So, okay, so they're like, Acha, when kids are, then you're going to have meals when they're serving lunch or to me. So I'm like, okay. So my father is like, suddenly, I'm telling you, these things are so, no one will talk about these things. My father suddenly says, Acha, tsabe yetti, banetza thanda tresh, right? So he goes, and I'm like, where is he going? So it's like, mommy is like, no, no, he's going to get cold water for you. I'm like, okay, where is he getting cold water for me? He's like, well, what this gentleman is doing is, there used to be these big liters of these cold drink bottles, like Sprite or whatever, baju botlas hain. They
yes,
used to fill water in them. That is Nibrakin Nahar Rosa. नहर थी ना वहां पे. नहर
हाँ,
ठंडी
yes,
होती थी.
canal.
नहर ठंडी होती थी, तो वो उस नहर में गर्म पानी की बोतल ऐसे इमर्स करके 15 मिनट उसको करके तो फिर आके मेरे को ठंडा पानी पिलाते थे. These are the things which our families went through, and these are families which were well-to-do families. I'm not talking about people who had nothing, who were then living in the camps, and that I'll tell you later. But these are people who really had good means. Even they had nothing. And for almost 1 year, my
Very
parents,
unfortunate. Very
they lived like that. So the other thing is that at night I have to go to the bathroom now. Okay. So I'm telling, okay, so I go and both my parents are like, no, 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 her, I'll get the one is getting a torch, one is getting something else. Like, why are they behaving like this? So anyway, they didn't tell me anything. Later on, they tell me there was a huge open area in the back of where they lived. That is Sarafasan, big, huge snakes. And my mother says that afterwards, like 2 months later, she's like, the bathroom outside, it has snakes all the time. I'm like, goodness gracious. I mean,
It means I've never seen a snake,
well,
or for that matter, a bichu,
I have
scorpio.
never seen a snake.
That's
Those are the things that our families, our community has
I've
gone
faced.
through.
So
Small,
many people died in
how many
camps
people?
because
Yeah,
of these snake bites and other things happened. I remember. जैसे भी थे वो अपने विलेज में they were the बादशाह, they were the kings.
exactly.
Their
They own
moorings in their
their
land
land.
estate.
And अभी आपने बोला कि शोपियान में लैंडस्केप कैसा था, कि मुझे तो लगता है कि जैसे हम लोग स्विट्जरलैंड में हैं या कहीं हैं. Nothing
स्विट्जरलैंड से भी
like
बहुत
that. Nothing
ब्यूटीफुल.
like that.
पूरी
And
नाइट पे टॉरेंट पे बैठो एंजॉय करो.
imagine,
Their
and
water was so digestive, minerals,
very much.
that we used to eat twice or thrice during the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those folks were then thrown into this harsh landscape,
Yes,
where
that's
heat
true.
going to like 45 degrees. We were never used to it. Snakes, scorpions, some other kind of, and then it was a
And very
horrible
abundant areas where hooliganism was there, and many other aspects which people
lot
will
of
not talk. But anyway, let's move on. You worked, and you, as a doctor, your role during this period was that you went to the camps and you served there for some time. Besides serving in a BH, which hospital you served there in Jammu?
Be charitable. When I
BN
went to
charitable.
Jammu, yeah, my
But you,
husband had
yeah,
yeah, my husband had gone into, like, he got a surgical fellowship in Jammu. So we went back
okay,
1991. We went back, and so for a period of time, I worked with BN Charitable Hospital. So it was a wonderful place to work, and we got to obviously connect
it's a
back to
good
my
hospital.
friends.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Our friends, actually, very close friends, they also came there. We said, okay, let's work here. We had a wonderful environment there. We used to, but soon after, we also thought that maybe we should try, other ventures. And I went to, actually, I took a clinic up in Muthi camp. So that was what I did for the rest of, I think, 2 or 3 years. I ran a clinic in Muthi camp, and that's where I got. See, what happens is that after we left Kashmir, we were ourselves like so confused as to what to do. And everyone was desperate in one way or the other. When I came back to Jammu, that's when I realized that I'm not the only person suffering here. Look towards your community. I saw what the community was going through. Until then, I was looking at me myself, oh, my career is gone, blah, blah, whatever. But then I saw what was happening to my community, and that's when I decided to run a clinic in Muthi camp, and that opened my eyes to what I saw. Like, how people at that time when I went there, the tents had been converted into these mud huts. I don't know if you have visited them. It was literally one room mud hut.
it
They were
was, yes, it was. It was very horrible, very horrible.
was a mud hut, and in one I have visited those, like, there was a small, I think about 8 by 9 or something, whatever it
Yes,
measured.
yes, yes.
It
Very
was
dingy, very
it
small.
was it was
It
small. It
it
was
was it was
mud.
more of those those cells being created for the fugitives, and
Absolutely.
people
So
like
on
that.
one side was a kitchen. On one side was a small kitchen. Kitchen kya ho uski? A slab of
No
things.
drainage system, nothing. Yeah, like that.
Excited Sasan Timo Bichare Thomad Bistar, they stacked up their bedding, and there was hardly a place to sit. When I would go to see a patient, Timas Bichare Vanan Kursi Manusna Sab Bihim Pathar, but there was hardly any room to sit there. And in rain, it used to get flooded, and in heat, they had no place to go. So horrible things, and the spectrum of mental diseases that you saw. Forget
But
about
the
the
sickness was
physical.
there.
Forget about the
Trauma.
physical aspect was nothing. Okay, you get hypertension, that was nothing. The mental stress, I have seen what a it was such a pathology of mental diseases I have seen. From anger people used to scream, and from dire
Anguish,
depression
rejection, depression.
and dejection, and people would be like roaming around in those camps with no
Schizophrenia was
purpose.
happening. Personality breakup, split.
So no purpose in life. They didn't know what they were going to do. There was like morning to evening. They just had one. Okay, vain kar baik khana khana pina or kuch nahi. And there was life was purposeless. There was families. I'll tell you, families. One family, there used to be 7, 8 people living in that one mud hut.
I know that. I know that. That's
And
very sad. Archana ji,
honestly,
it's very, I mean, this story is very deep. It's into our consciousness
yep,
now. We know that this horrible thing has happened, but it has also happened with many people, many other communities as well. And it's a very tragic. This consciousness will never uh, be away from us. We
absolutely,
will not ever be very bereft of this consciousness. This will remain. This is the Exodus consciousness. This is the turmoil consciousness. But
absolutely.
uh, let's move ahead now. Come to the today's topic, today's theme, that is about the Kashmiri diaspora in
Yes.
US, a long century. So that is the whole kernel of today's topic, and you narrated wonderful anecdotes, very mesmerizing in Srinagar and in Shopian, and your institutions where you studied, Melansons and med school and Girjadar and all those things. You brought it very live. All these anecdotes. Through these anecdotes, the entire thing has become organic. We can see it on our screen of our consciousness and subconsciousness. So anyway, let's move to the main topic of today. Before we talk about your career in US, your migration to US, then your work, social work, and your presidentship as a KOA and KOA also, let's talk about Kashmiri's long century.
So, for this segment, I had to talk to a few people who have come here in
Yes.
1960s, and they have given me their stories. So I might be reading a little bit because I don't remember everything. I'll try to. What you had asked is that we talk about a century of Kashmiri Pandits in
Yeah.
this country, United States of America. One of the things that I have to tell everyone that for most of us, United States of America is home now, and it is almost like when you are basically living in darkness and you suddenly find light. That's what we found in this country. When we came, we were all desperate from all ends. I'm talking about 1990 and post. But when you come to this country really is a land of opportunity. Whether you came in 1950s or you come now,
Aspirations and opportunities.
whether
Land
you
of dreams. Yeah.
exactly, whether you came 50 years back, 60 years back, or you come today, you will get opportunity here. And if you work hard and you work sincerely and you work with honesty, there's no stopping you here. Yes, there are difficulties, no doubt. There's difficulties everywhere, but you will achieve what you dream here in this country. So, in this, kind of segment to find basically some history. I
Thank
thought,
you very much. Within a very short span of time, you researched and you interviewed people and talked to them about this theme, which was
almost
my real theme. I really wanted to do a subject, and I was searching for the person, and finally it came to my mind that Archana ji will be the right person to talk about. Yeah.
thank you for giving me the opportunity. I just connected back to these folks who have honestly been a part of my life in the past 3 or 4 years because I talk to them frequently anyway. But I'll tell you a brief thing. Until 1950s, whoever Kashmir Pandit, whoever came to this country, they were far and few, and they were scattered because it's a large land. They were scattered in different kind of parts of United States and didn't really connect to each other. So I'll give you an example. There was a Bhan family in Florida. There was Mr. Kashkari, whose son now, Neil Kashkari, is a very well-known personality in United
Kashkari.
States. Yes. His father has come here, I think, in late 50s. And he also, I think he came to University of Michigan to complete his PhD at that time. So early 60s also some folks came, but it actually became the cohesiveness of the Kashmiri Pandit community in this country came towards the end of 1960s when there were enough families, especially in DC area and New York area. There were like 5, 6 families, and they started having collective get-togethers, celebrations, and so on and so forth. So I know that there were two individuals that I talked to who have come here early 60s. One was this. One was Dr. Hira Khotedar. He came in 1966. So he has given me a very detailed, his life story here in the early days. And other one was Pradman Kasbaji and Ratna Kasba, who came to this country in 1968. They came earlier. Before that, they were in Germany, and then they came here. Instantly, all of these folks who have come here, they all came for, completing their education. And obviously, some of them were doing PhDs, some of them went to colleges. And either ways, it was a pursuit of academics and their careers. They came here. And then, of course, they made a life for themselves. So I'm going to tell you about Dr. Fotadar, who came here in 1966. And he was, again, he says to me that when I came here, there was a Mr. Ratanlal Dhar who was in Seattle, and he helped him settle down because he took up, I think he was doing a PhD in Seattle, in the University of Washington. So he met Mr. Ratanlal Dhar and he helped him, mentored him. And of course, Dr. Fotadar would end up, getting a PhD. He then, moved first in this country, then he moved out, then he went to, I think, South America. He set up, some, he was, I think he worked in, he was a VP, a vice president of Eton, industries. He was here in 1980s, then went out of this country, came back, and then his involvement in Kashmir affairs, he said, didn't start until the exodus and the migration happened, and he saw what happened to his, families and stuff. He got very
Enormous.
much involved. And what's remarkable is that Hiraji is married to an American lady, Patricia, and it was Patricia actually who told Hiraji. He said, "You got to do something about your community. You have to do it." And she actually was behind. She pioneered a clothing drive in 1990 and arranged for, I think, two planes to carry clothes from here to migrant camps. That was Pat Fotadar doing it. And Hiraji told me that if it had not been for Pat, he probably wouldn't have really gotten involved that much, of course, but she
Okay.
really pushed him to do it. Now, another family, the Kaspa family, like I said, that they have really been instrumental in creation of KOA. Until then, like I said, that they were having these organic get-togethers every Shivratri. I'll tell you that they used to have a get-together. Everyone used to do a potluck, like everyone cooked something, and they used to sit down and have. First, they would have Shivratri, then used to have picnics, but then later on, they kind of decided when the numbers grew, they said we need to organize it better. And so Mr. Pradhaman Kasba and Ratna Kasba, they used to live in DC area, Maryland area, and they said we need to have an organization. And the purpose for that organization was obviously social cultural at that time, because it was
Social culture. That's right.
it was sitting down, having a good time, celebrating Shivratri, other festivals, doing it together. So they said we need to have an organization which is social cultural, and that was the inception of Kashmiri Overseas Association.
KOA. Okay.
Exactly. In 1983, she tells me that they had to apply for, you have to apply for the status of the organization, and they got a tax exempt IRS certification. In 1983, she said that I got a lawyer, I paid $500, and that was the official certification of KOA in 1983. We still have on our official document, we have their address on that in the IRS certification. So that was the social cultural aspect of it. This was 1980, so the communities grew. Then there was a very strong community in New Jersey, New York, DC area. Then California started to grow. At this point of time, I'll tell you, California by far has the biggest Kashmiri Pandit community, followed by the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and then we have the DC area. So very strong communities, and now Texas community is growing as well. Now, when KOS started, they usually used to have like one gathering. But then soon they decided, when California started to grow, they said, we need to do East Coast, West Coast, because the difference in time here is like 3 hours already.
3 hours. Yeah.
And,
It's a lot
and
of
the
difference.
time
Time difference.
zones and the distance is like 5 hours by plane apart. So they said we cannot have gatherings from one end to the other. We need to have two. So we have East Coast and West Coast now. And when these gatherings started to get bigger, they started to do camps. And then they picked a time. 4th of July is the independence here. So we picked 4th of July. We still do. The camp started, I think, in 1980s. We still do 4th of July camp every year. We do
That's
an
over.
East Coast camp, and then we do a West Coast in September. But this tradition has stayed. It has become stronger. And like I said, that we don't miss a year, except for the COVID years, we couldn't do it. But now, every year we do that. So that was another thing. And in this pursuit, I have obviously also talked to Vijay Sazawal. Now, Vijay Sazawal is his contributions are different. He was more like a political analyst, and he
Political
said that
analyst and
exactly he himself was
interlocutor as well.
nuclear physicist. And when KO was created, now since KO was a social cultural kind of organization, they thought that and especially after the exodus, they thought that we have to at least get our political aspect, so we have to talk about it. And since KO cannot do it, Vijay Sasawal and other folks created Indo-American Forum, IEKF. And so he's one of the founding members of that. And what that did is that they started to meet the politicians in this country and raise the awareness. So raising the awareness of what has happened to the Kashmiri Pandits is something which started way back in 1990, when folks like Vijay Sazawal, Mr. Kasba, and all those, they actually met with the politicians and they appraised them of what was going on ground with Kashmiri Pandits, because
What?
there was no official news coming out of Indian press about this problem. So not many people were, even now today, very few folks know about the problem. But the politicians, the decision makers in this country
They are the main
have been.
center corridors of power. The reins
Absolutely.
lie with them.
Have
Yes.
been, there have been multiple conferences that these folks have had, multiple sit downs with the politicians here and told them the reality on the ground and stuff. So Vijay Sazawar was one of those folks who has done, those kind of things. Now, my own uncle, Dr. Hanjura, came to this country in 1968, and his experiences, obviously, we have talked about so many times, that he says that at that time, you can imagine the foreign exchange limit was $8. You could not have more than $8, as foreign exchange. And when he came in with his family. My cousins were in there. One was 4 and one was 5. Their life as students in this
You're
country.
talking about 1968.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They went to school in New York, and their
Okay.
experience there is that there was no Indian, there was no Kashmiri Pandits. Forget about. There were probably not even Indians at that
Hmm.
time in schools in New York, and it was an interesting phase for them. My Mami ji was a housewife, and the challenges she had to face. One of the things that we used to laugh at, she's like, when we were in Kashmir, we used to watch Western movies, and the Western movies always they have alcohol. They come home and they just come and grab a whiskey and
Gallop and go.
yeah. So she's like, when I came to this country, I thought that was the norm. So I go to the apartment and I'm seeing a tap. So she opened the tap and there's water, right? This water comes. She's like asking my mamaji, is this for drinking? Can we drink this? And he's like, of course you can drink it. Yecha tresh chavan dunus na
It's a municipality nal kicha
Robi
yete.
seća nalkasća treš, da ječna sa sari šarap čavan, ječe
Sorry.
treš se čavan. So, I mean, then, like I said, that by the time in 1968, there were 4 or 5 families that they connected to in New York only, and they used to have these get-togethers. But there was a family, I think it was Mr. Call and his wife, who was I think working in either World Bank or something. He was a little bit
Well
older,
done.
so he would call these ladies for Zangtre and Patasak Divan, Atagat, or $8 Divan, those kind of things. These traditions started around 1960s, late 1960s, and brought us to where we are today. Yes.
Yes, that's so wonderful. I have my close relatives there. My sister is there, and brother is also. But he went a bit later. They all went in 80s around. But I have stories about one Mr. Khan in 1930s from the Khan family, a very affluent family from Kashmir. He
Mhm.
went. He was the first man probably to go to the United States to
Uh-huh.
study at the Harvard University, and the man who built the Zero Bridge, engineer from his.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that is how the story goes. I don't know. There may be many more because I know many relatives of mine who say that Falana went in 1940s. They have died by now. Falana went in 1945 or something like that. But anyway, this is a subject matter of research. Not many
Exactly.
people.
I'll
Yeah.
probably need a little more time to connect to those families,
We'll
but
just
I know
create. We'll
that
just create one more complete. This.
1960s is when I got most of the material from. I mean, I'm going to name a few people that are really, that we should know, and they have created a name for not only themselves, but given the community such a good name. One is Mr. Bansi Pandit, very, very well known author, revered here. Everyone knows him. I think he came here in again 1960s, and he himself was, I think he is by profession, he's a nuclear physicist, a
Nuclear
scientist,
physicist.
but then he has written 11, 12 books, very much, ingrained into the Hindutva, Vedic philosophies, Kashmiri Shaivism.
Okay,
And
that's
what's more is that he has been
like a Shastra.
extremely involved in KOA, has written the bylaws, involved up to date. He's one of the mentors that I always go to if I have a question, and I'll always call Bansiji, and he has been
Expert.
so gracious. Yeah. Another person that I do want to mention is Mr. Ratan Khosa. He's by far the best known entrepreneur of Kashmiri Pandits, came to this country again for studying with $3.75 in his pocket. And today he has one of the most successful businesses that he himself created out of hardship and nothing else, because he graduated and did his MBA, but at the end he found that he lost jobs. People, the employers don't have a problem letting people go when they don't need them, and he then questioned it.
Fire.
Oh, exactly. Then he created his own business, and Cisco, and a very successful businessman, and he is the best known entrepreneur of
Philanthropist also.
that's Ratan Khosa. Again, he came to this country in 1969, and so many more that we could talk about their experiences in this country and how they have shaped the Kashmiri Pandit community. We all look up towards these individuals. You have already talked to Subhash Kak and all, him. So we look up to these individuals. They are, our inspiration, if I may. Their inspiration. They're there for us, and even now, very involved in what's happening to Kashmiri Pandit community in this country. And
There's
of
one
course,
comment which came. One comment is coming. Professor Krishna Misri's father had his engineering education in USA. Must be in 1920s.
wow, we need.
Earlier
I,
to
I
Mr.
need to.
Khan.
I need to do a better job researching that. I'm telling you,
So we
because
need a lot
I
of
did.
research now.
I did
Some
not get so
GL
much time.
Tikku, GL Tikku, a scholar, and Dr. B.B. Kacharu, I don't know. There are many, many names coming in. Kashmiri Pandits have everything in their kitty. I mean, slowly, gradually, they start.
I would like to have these names, because I will, in the coming weeks and months, I will reach out, and I am planning to just write something about the history of Kashmiri Pandits and their contributions to our community
Yeah, yeah, we must,
in this
because
country.
I want these Kashmiri Pandits who went to those countries in those uncertain times, and they did wonderful jobs for themselves and made us proud. We must be proud of our community. Unless and until we
Absolutely,
are proud of our community, we cannot move ahead. I mean, this is something which we,
that's.
we must take it as a legacy. Our legacy. Our children must know.
You are
There's
so
something
right. Unless we raise that pride, we bring these
esteem.
individuals out who have paved the way. They have made the way very easy for us, for our
That's true.
generation. They have faced many more challenges than us. We need to bring those personalities out, talk about them, and talk about their contributions, be proud of their accomplishments, so that our community will be proud of, the general,
Okay.
you know, yes.
So Archana ji will move ahead. Dr. Archana will move ahead now. First of all, let's talk about a bit about your story. Your story. You talked about other stories. Your story, going to US and studying that internal medicine, whatever you call it, that residency at that university, and then practitioner as a this doctor, as a physician, and later on your social involvement, your sensibility towards association with the KOA and all these things. Let's first of all begin with your own story, your husband, and how did you manage it all these years after post 1997 when you migrated to this place. Yes.
Yeah, so we came to this country in 1997. My husband had gotten obviously residency in Temple University Hospital, an affiliate of Temple. He started his residency. I came, and we had two children at that time already born in India. My son, Oshin, was 5 years old, and my daughter was just born. Actually, she was 5 months old when we moved to this country. And in the beginning, of course, I mean, it was a new culture for us again, a new place for us. So I couldn't have done it without the help of, again, a few of the Kashmiri families here. One, of course, my uncle was here, and he and his wife were like my parents, and they helped us settle down. But after we moved to Philadelphia, we moved to Philly, and it was the local Kashmiri families, particularly Razdan family, who now became my other set of parents and still continue to this day. We are very close to them, and
Just for
they.
the interruption, for my friends who always say that can we have a conversation in Kashmiri, I always tell them that Shitanath conversation is inter-community interaction. But besides inter-community interaction, it's an intra-community this interaction. We want that all the people who are interested into Kashmir, our stories, our very very enriching stories, our personalities which we bring, who are the luminaries and who have done such a remarkable role in the public life, that comes into the panorama, the larger panorama. So that is the holistic thing. That's why we speak in English. But we are not, we don't refrain from using Hindi words, Kashmiri words. Like Jalali Saab, our friend, I really admire his comment. He wants that Archana ji, if she's using some Kashmiri vocabs and
बिल्कुल
Kashmiri words and Kashmiri things, she can speak at
बुकर
extempore. So
बिल्कुल
there is no restriction as such. But language format will remain English. So for
ठीक
that
है
friends
बुकर
who really
I
want to
will
know about why it is in English, yes, please,
ना ना ना
please.
बुकर कशर पर मैं उन्होंने कि ये अस योर आई तो ये तो
No, you
राजदान
can continue in English, but mix. You
I
can
will
learn.
do it. So
Whatever audience.
Razdans ٲسۍ ییٚتہِ آمٕتۍ سانہِ برونٛٹھ تہٕ ییٚلہِ أسۍ بہٕ یور آیَس I did not have a car, right? So دۄہَس منٛز whatever I had to do, grocery shopping, sabzi چھانٕنۍ, شُرۍ چھِ تُلٕنۍ. Mrs. Razdan used to come every day to my house with her car and used to drive me around. Chahe sume school os shuren gasun asan, not that they had a school bus, but kun sat ke kam asan, it was Mrs. Razdan for that 1 year, first year, who used to come at every time I used to call her, ke auntie machit ke gasun sabzi chaman hu chamanen. She used to do that for me until we bought another car and then I started to drive and stuff like that. So without the support of the community here, whoever has come here, whether it is
Okay.
me or anyone for that matter, there always is a supplemental Kashmiri family who have guided you.
That's so
That
wonderful.
is
That's so
what
wonderful
that is
to know
what
that.
I
Yeah.
exactly, and that is
It was
why.
in Langhorne. You were in the Langhorne.
So we started out in a town Ben Salem. Then
Okay.
we moved, magar moved to Kitkenkore. So Mrs. Razan and her daughter decided to move up a little bit. We followed them because this is family. We can't do without them. So then they decided to move somewhere else. We moved with them. So till date, when Punsuvari, we still are the same community, the same families. You must that start gay. We are together. So yes, because they are our family. India manze, we left our family. We left parents, sisters, brothers, whoever. Then we worked hard for 25 years to create a family here. And that's what we have. The
That's so wonderful.
family,
That's so
and
enriching
that's
and so inspiring. Outer circle, which was
exactly.
around you, and which is your larger family, and which is your real family around. Now,
Exactly.
your real family.
So as to when asan me phone call asan karan kun satchs bu agar me gase zatra do phone call karnas pannan garken dilemmas ya India hasmas tim me wana case korun the phone bichas andarkin sochan ki me yetkente karun tatkente korun bu kuten kar phone. They don't understand that we have created over the years, we have created our families here. And we are very close to these folks here. So they cannot be replaced. So Patielis, when I came here for the first year, while my husband was doing residency, it's very obviously hectic lifestyle at that time. I was taking care of my two children, of course, also trying to set up a house here, and also studying. Doctors have to appear for USMLEs, and I had to appear for USMLEs before I could graduate and before I could get a residency. So my first year was pretty much busy, just studying. And then by the second year, I had completed my exams. And then I started my residency in internal medicine. And I joined Temple University Hospital. And
And the practice began.
Those 3 years again were hectic. So when my residency was about to start, I called my parents and I said to them, I said, you have to come. So my mom said, why would I come? They were themselves like, no, we're not going to come. I said, no, if you don't come, I am done. And then I can't do anything. She's like, well, you should have thought about it when you
You should have
left.
thought about it before going.
Dopun yim cheez şu na te soçan god pete pachu dapan value sayu. But mara kur zar par var par varya zar par kor. So finally my parents did come. So then the arrangement was like my parents would come for 6 months, my in-laws would come, my mother-in-law would come for 6 months. And for those 3 years, the residency years, that was the arrangement. Timus Yaman Patas, whom Yaman Patas. So Maklo residency Tranvarian Hiskarit, and then I took up a job
So you
in a
practice.
hospital.
Okay.
First, I was again. We had a waiver. We had visa issues. Major, you said to sar ko zyada chu damagas mas stress asan chu
यूएस में आजकल है.
visa has mas tamas to os asan magar tu tak complicated os na. So because of the visa issues, we had to take a certain job here and there. So I started working for a group, cardiology group, and I worked with them for 3 or 4 years. What happened is that it was very restricting. I had children, and the timing that they were giving me was not, congenial to my lifestyle. So after that, after in 2005, I decided to start my own practice, and that's what I did because it gave me flexibility of raising my own family.
Working hours and
Exactly, working
being
hours.
your own boss, you know.
Yes, but that also had a lot of challenges because when you have your own
Certainly,
practice,
certainly. This would have.
then then you can't cut corners. You can't just take off one day. So in the first 10 years, we hardly ever, my husband and I hardly ever took off. We just invested our time in our own practice, and then it took off. By then the kids had also grown. They were responsible. We didn't have to put too much time in their education.
Okay.
And with God's grace and with the help of, like I said, many folks here, we were able to, consolidate our practice. The kids, luckily they, joined there.
But I must
Working
give I must give a great credit to your husband, Dr. Tej Kokroo Saab.
ages, I have,
Because we are talking about everyone else other than him, but I think it must have been a very, very, inseparable kind of an association and
yeah.
support.
You cannot do anything without the support of your spouse.
Your
I can
life
tell you
partner.
that. You have to have a very supportive husband if you
Certainly.
want to jump from one thing to the other, like I do, right? um, Whatever I do
Changing the
is
cycles.
challenging on side. Even before I started out with KOA, I started helping in KOA as a volunteer in I think 2010, when my kids were old enough to take care of themselves. I
Okay.
had this urge, this intense urge to give back to the community. And that came from the years of my spending time at the camps. So in 2010, my older one, he had started college. And I said, okay, now's the time. I can devote some of the time to the community. And so I volunteered at local, like picnics, arranging picnics and stuff like that. And as my daughter then, went on to college in 2015, I literally full-fledged gave my time to.
And then you were this inner urge that was lying dormant within you,
Yeah,
a socialist within you, a feminist within you, a person who was interested in the culture and in cultural exchange and integrity, and wanted to help humanity.
yeah.
That was awakened, and you got a respite and time to do that. And how did it begin? You were associated with KOA,
No, I mean,
like
like
from
I
the
said, that
beginning.
we were always a part of the community. I used to attend in 1997 when I came. All these local Kashmiris here. We used to have Shivratri functions, Diwali functions, and all that. So I was always a part of that. Not as a volunteer, but I used to attend. And then I wanted to do something. I said that every time I go, which is sirf gasan khan khata hai, I need to do something. So in 2005, closely we started like sponsoring. There is an education program. We started sponsoring kids and stuff. And then, like I said, when in 2010 my son graduated and he went to college, I thought that I had a little bit of time to devote to KOA, and I started doing volunteering as community worker. That chasa my community im chasa Shivratri huye
Right,
takos volunteer karun, chai banawan, hu karun, ni karun, picnics arrange karun and stuff.
picnics,
Yeah,
excursions,
yeah.
interactions, talks,
Absolutely,
conversations.
Keto Sasan, helping the people who are already in the leading roles, directors and all. I used to help them and all that. And then in 2015, like I said, my daughter went to college, and I said, okay, now I have more time. And then, again, it was most volunteering. Mostly, I was very comfortable in doing work without having to, what can I say, like responsible for anything.
Without
So I was like,
responsibility.
okay, this is the best thing. You just do whatever you have to do, and no one is going to ask you a question about what you did and what you didn't do. So that was the best part of volunteering. But then,
And let's come to KOA. A bit of KOA. We'll talk about a bit about KOA. Everybody knows about KOA. And tell us something about the wider goals and wider structure of KOA. You gave a brief about this inception. When did it start exactly, and now then how it's shaped? What is this larger goal apart from socio-cultural exchanges and philanthropy? And what
Right.
are major things? Major things. Not all. We don't have time to count on everything.
Right. So let
Major
me.
directions in which it has moved into, and its dynamics, how it's happening and how it's changing
So,
from
like I said, that the inception of KOA came in 1983 when a group of people thought that we need to be more
yes.
organized and we want to create this organization, and they did. And once they did that, up till 1990, it was still a social cultural organization who were, the mission was to preserve and promote our heritage and our traditions and our unique way of life. Then in 1990, when the exodus happened, the folks here decided that we got to do something about it. The our community is suffering. So many of the individuals, including Hiraji and then Kanhailal Kaulji, who was the president at that time, they had the urge. They went to the camps. They actually lived in the camps, and they then saw what the challenges of the people in the camp are. Hiraji told me a story that when he went to the camps and stayed in the tents for a few days, one of the girls came to him and said, and he asked her, Domnus ki tah kya difficulty? Domnus, which humara paran tapasmans, yetet ashun school. They did not have a school. They used to study outside in like broad daylight, and that was
Okay.
tapakaya sasa. So he said, we will do that. So they came back, and that is when the educational programs, the SAC and EAP started in 1994. They have started. So the community had promised that we will raise enough funds and we will give it to the children back there so that they can have meaningful education. So since then, I think the first year they enrolled 35 kids. That is 1994, if I may be mistaken, a year here or there. 35 kids were enrolled. आज जो सो program last year कर ऐसे 60-70 budget sponsor.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
So this is where the programs have begun. Again, same time frame, I would say that these programs. So KOA actually incorporated the charitable mission in the social cultural. Now we are a social cultural and charitable organization.
Charitable
So
as well.
that charitable wing was opened during 1990s, 1994, 95, even Sani Varian. At the same time, they started a program, the medical funds program. And the medical funds program, again, used to help individuals, patients, to help in their, paying the bills. But after a certain time, we wanted partners, we wanted local partners to help us make these programs run smoothly. So for the educational programs, we have had many people help us. There was Mr. Bhato Sasan. He used to run these programs for a long period of time. Pranji here from California and Bhatt Saab in Jammu, they used to run the programs, I think until 2018 or 16, if I'm right in dates. After that, we have partnered with Sharika Foundation. And Sharika Foundation, this time, Sunil Tusuji, Maharaj Bhajanji, and we partnered with them. And that partnership has now grown. It is, I think, 6 years plus with them. So
Okay.
they are our local partners in Jammu who help us organize and then run these programs.
That's good.
At
That's good.
at the same time, we did a partnership with KMECT. Again, KMECT is a very reputable, medical trust that we partnered with them, and we run our medical funds program through KMECT. So KMECT gets a patient, they are basically evaluate the patient. Then if they feel, they send it to KOA. We do our own internal review, and after the case is approved, then we release the funds to the treatment, towards the treatment of the patient. The
That's good.
money does not go to the patient; it goes to the hospital or pharmacy or any facility who is providing the treatment. Now, so these were the basic programs that were created in 1990s. Now, after that, I think one of the best things that happened to KOA is starting of the youth program. The youth program again was started, I think, early on, but then it took better shape, and we started creating programs for youth and this and that. At this time, the KOA youth is literally an independent entity, although it is under KOA, but they
Ashok Ahmad Saab, the ex-vice chancellor of Central University, is asking Dr. Archana, what about having Shardapet University on the future agenda of KOA? It is this
absolutely. I'll talk about Sharda Peeth in a bit. I just wanted to say that how proud we are of the KOA youth. I have to tell
okay,
you is that nowhere in the world, any organization in the world will tell me that they have an organized Kashmiri youth as we have. We have hundreds of KA youth who are involved in preserving our language, kosher language,
languages,
Harka language, no, religious festivals, Harka festival, as they
rituals.
will be a part. Um, so they are a bridge for us from our culture to the newer culture, obviously. So they are the bridge where they are taking us from stage one to stage two. They are involved in everything that KO is involved in, whether it is social, culture, charitable, mission. They are a part of it. They run their individual weekends, camps. They just have one coming up in Chicago, and where they will have 3 days, a congregation of 60, 70 kids will be there. At the same time, when we have a 4th of July camp, they will be involved in every aspect of our culture and heritage. So that is one of the proud things that KOA has done,
That's the one. That's
and
the one.
we just want to strengthen it because they will be taking over KOA one day, and we want to shape KOA in such a way that we are not redundant anymore. That our newer generation
Organic
identifies with
challenges.
the changing times, and we become stronger. And we can only become stronger if we respect our past, but also let our future, you
Be
know,
very pragmatic about the reality around. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Yes.
that is what we are transitioning into.
Janaji, you have been elected the president of Kashmiri Overseas Association twice. Uh, I would like to ask, what is? You are on the popular demand there. What is the whole mechanism? How did it happen? You are popular, no doubt. Everybody knows about it. That's why you were re-elected. But probably your work was different, or situation was different. What it was exactly? Could elucidate about it?
So, I mean, I'm going to answer the second part first, and then talk about,
Okay.
elections and stuff like that. So, the first thing is that the first 2 years of my presidency were basically taken over by COVID. Honestly, I mean, I had just
COVID
started.
presidency.
I honestly, I had just started, and in January, I was still trying to figure out how to get started, and COVID hit India. And COVID hit India in April, end of April. And from end of April to literally the entire like October, November, we were, structuring our programs. We did from the first 3 months, it was all acute COVID phase. And then after that, we created two programs, we are still helping, COVID families. And now it has transitioned into more into family sustenance, where we helped, I think, hundreds of families who had either lost their loved ones to COVID, or they had lost a job, or they had chronic complications of COVID. We have literally helped hundreds of families, help them get back on track. So that program still continues. After that, I'll tell you is that elections are never easy process in every, whether it's a political election or not.
Any organization,
Organization elections really are not the best.
especially with KPs, I know, because KP politics and this all these KP Sabha politics across India, in Kashmir and outside Kashmir, whether in 20th century or the 19th century, in Lahore, Jaipur, Calcutta, Lucknow, Meerut, we have programs on those people as well. So it is always difficult because Kashmiri Pandits are intellectually they are very wise. They think they are very wise people. Yes.
Election is not a good forte for, I think, because we're a small community, and in a small community, if you have divisiveness, whether it's from elections or what, it's not healthy for our community,
Yes.
because we are only a few, and dividing those few is not for our best interest. That's just my 2 cents. Having said that,
That's very important.
I'll tell you what. It is very important for people who come in public life, especially social work. It's very important for them to understand that you have to know exactly what you want to do. In my case, I know exactly what I want to do. I am rooted, like you said,
Clarity of thought.
roots is the word. I am rooted in making sure that while I work hard to maintain our socio cultural integrity of KOA in this country, that is making sure that we do the right things here, culture preservation, language, and this and that. We don't dilute on that. But I am rooted in helping people back in the camps. That is my passion, that is my dedication. And no matter how many challenges I face, whether they are, from people here or, there's when you are in public life, you're going to have criticism. And you should
You have to be very strong to be in
strong
public life.
in dealing with that. Of course, you have to be very respectful because the people who are on the other side of the spectrum also want to do good for the community. They're also coming from the same, passion. They want to do good for, they may not agree with you. They will say that you haven't
Different
done
side
a
to
good
you.
job, which is fine. Of course, I mean, I am not perfect. I'm sure that, there's, we as humans, we make mistakes here and there, but what you have
Okay.
to see is what is behind that, what is the passion, what's the dedication. And I can tell you is that there, I have no qualms about saying that I, in my personal life, being a physician, I am a working physician. I have a family. My parents live here for the most part. I dedicate every day about 4 hours to KOA, 4 to 5.
That's the one.
It's my
That's
second
your
job.
passion.
It's my second job. And I don't do it because I have to prove it to anyone. I do it because
You love it.
I really want to do a good job. I don't want to just for the name's sake be here.
Namesake.
If someone wants help, I will try. If I can't help him, that's fine. But I will try. I will try to help that person. So that's where my passion comes from, is only because I want to give back to the community.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. So I got the reply. I mean, my both components got the reply in it. But anyway, it's an allegoric way of telling yourself you are very humble and you don't want to highlight many things which has been done in your period as a president. But the approach should be like that, especially in a community like ours. We have to see that we are very microscopic. It's a very sensitive thing. One would needs to deal it with very hand gloves and deal it delicately, eloquently,
Right.
with a balance of mind, perfection, and vision that you have. And
Thank you.
I would like to say one more thing, Archana. I would like to say the social change, social engineering is a natural phenomenon in the world. I have seen USSR when it broke down, how Russians were treated, how things were. But I cannot narrate. There are certain things I cannot explain here. Those things I've experienced on the street because I've traveled a lot. Kashmiri Pandits are not the different. They are a community within on this planet. And intercaste marriages is a very real thing. It happened in Sindhis, it happens in Punjabis, it happens in Gujaratis, it happens all over. It's a universal phenomenon. So, irrespective of whatever opinions we hold, uh, what how do you think as a president of KOA in a place like USA you stay and challenges of the modern times, the materialism, the culture and other dimensions which you face and encounter into day-to-day life, how do you deal with this kind of a situation? How do you what have you to say about this intercaste marriages and then I mean bringing them into the inner circle or making them float like a satellite on the outer periphery of the social structure of the core organizations like you. What have you to say about what are your views on it?
So change is life. Life
Right.
grows when there is change. And
Change is inevitable phenomenon of nature. Yeah.
stagnant waters breed reptiles and contempt. So you have to understand that. Whether we were in Kashmir or we were are in US, change is a sense, and that will happen, no matter what I feel about it or what anyone feels about it. I think it's an opportunity for all of us, whether it is KOA or not. to embrace this change, and also that will make us stronger. So if a different community, a person from different community is coming into your life or your family, embrace them, add them on to KOA. That's what I do.
That's the
So
one.
so
That
that's
should
what I do. Honestly, I'll tell them. So there's a marriage between a different culture. I'm like, make her the member, make him the member. We want to have members, and that's what has happened to KOA. There are so many families whose spouses are not Kashmiris, but can I tell you this? They're more Kashmiri than their spouses.
that's the one.
That
That's
is
culturally
amazing.
you connect them.
You have to. You have to. So what do we
That's
do?
a wise step. That's a very wise, open-minded, forward-moving kind of a step, kind of a thought process which you
You
are
have
employing.
to. You have to. Because what you do is you show them the best you have. In Kashmiri culture, the best thing is cuisine. So throw a Rogan Josh at them and a Damalu at them, and they're like, okay, they're sold. And invite them over. So I'll tell you, we have so many spouses here who are more Kashmiris than us, who follow more traditions than we do, than I do. And I'm amazed at that, how they have culturally, kind of gotten themselves into our. We need to welcome that change. We need to show,
That
we need to be
is
proud of that. We need to
that's
say
so
that,
productive.
we are not, it can brontes vanan, like in some orthodox religions, they'll say if you marry an outsider, you are not a part of our community. I think Kashmiri should say that if you marry someone else, bring their
You're an
families
ambassador.
on.
You are an
Bring their
ambassador of our
families on.
community.
Exactly. Make their families members. And we have in our KOA, I'll tell you that we have multiple hundreds of members who are not Kashmiris. And I literally encourage that. I want them to be KOA members because that's where my community is going to grow. Otherwise, we are going to be subtracting ourselves. We need to we need to add things on.
Assimilation is a process of human evolution. It will happen, and change is inevitable phenomenon of nature. Change is
Absolutely.
only the permanent thing.
Change
Rest
is
all
life.
is temporary.
If you
So you are doing wonderful. I think your and my opinion on this is the same.
absolutely,
I think we
absolutely.
must
No
come
doubt
out of that
about it.
narrow-minded. We must understand the sociology, how the world, how the human evolution goes, and in this, amid this vast reservoir, ocean of social changes, how we keep our flag, you know,
You have
flying.
to. You have to.
That's how
Um,
it is.
there was
Acharaji,
one. There was
yes,
one question
please,
about.
please.
I think was it getting Sharda Peeth? Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
Shardapit, Ashok Amaji, Vice Chancellor Saab was asking that what was your is the Shardapit University on the plan of KOA? Will I mean
I can I
Shardapit?
can, I can certainly touch base with Dr. Amma on this. I do not think so, but certainly, I mean, there should be an open dialogue between us and any educational institute because we all want educational excellence for our children wherever. So certainly, I can touch base with him later on.
Yeah, everybody is sending you good wishes. Major General Pran Kaul,
That is so
Professor BL
fine.
Jutsi, Veena Panta Kaul, IB Jutsi, Ashok Amma, Kuldeep Bhatt. They are all sending you blessings, good wishes, and they are floating in information that BL Jutsi says that his brother Avatar Motaji was a
Yes,
scientist in 1973.
yes.
He moved to USA, and Ashok Amma says that Ashok Dar went to USA in 1970. The
Yes.
list is endless. You
Miss,
can just have our research. Probably our research paper is the same. We
I
don't
will,
steal from each other.
I will talk with Mr. Mota. He sends beautifully written anecdotes sometimes to us, and we post them.
Avatar
He's
Motaji will be in USA very soon. He is going to his son, and probably we had one two programs with three four programs on Avatar Motaji because of role of Kashmiris in film industry. I mean, all amazing, stunning,
I,
astounding informations
I think
to
a
be.
few years back he wrote an excerpt on DAV School. I think he's an alumni of DAV School, and he wrote about. I think if that's the same, Mr. Mota, he wrote about
Achha,
my
you are talking about Dr.
grandfather.
Mattu, Dr. Avatar Mattu. You are talking about
No, no, no,
Avatar
no.
Mattu, Avatar Mota.
Yeah.
Dr. Avatar Motu is a scientist based in USA. He's Professor BL Jutsi's brother. He
Ah,
went into USA in 1973.
okay.
Avatar Mota is a blogger, researcher, one of the
Oh, no,
most
no, no,
brilliant
no, no, no.
brains,
I'm
researcher on
mistaken.
Kashmir and other parts of the world.
Yeah, my mistake. My mistake. I
Anyway, it doesn't matter, Ashana ji. I mean, all are doing good work, and we are here to. Shidala's
absolutely.
conversation is here to assimilate. I mean, I don't like as you said that you have to present yourself to the other communities the best, what best you
The
have.
best, the
So
best.
whenever we go into the external world, we must know this much. This much is what is needed. Otherwise, our community, wherever we go, whether we are in Israel, whether we are in America, Antarctica, we are doing very fine and better, and we are proud of this community. And
Absolutely.
before, I mean, we conclude this session, would you like to share any more anecdote, anything you wanted to share? I mean, you felt intensely to share. You can just have that. After that,
No,
we'll conclude
no.
because we're already, it's around 9:05. 2 hours had passed by.
I know this was, I'm sorry I took so much time. I just, honestly speaking, want to thank each and every person uh, who has been associated with giving COVID relief with us, because that was the most humbling experience for
Most
me when I
challenging work you
saw
did.
how much suffering after the exodus, how much suffering our community went through. And I visited the camps after that, and I saw that how much more they need. Like you said, that we are all individually, we are doing good, we have created a life for ourselves wherever, whether it's in India or overseas, we're all doing very well. I do want to make an appeal to everyone, whether it's here or elsewhere. There are still people who need our help. There are people, and many people question me and say, why are we helping them for 35 years or 40 years? My answer to them is that look at Africa. We have been helping Africa for centuries. There's still poverty in Africa. And make no mistake, there is poverty in our community. Yes, we are proud people. We may not openly and publicly come out, but I have seen it firsthand. I've seen that there are families, there might be very few of them, but there are. We have to identify them. It's our moral obligation to pull them out of that lives, because
They are the
otherwise,
same. They have the same genes. There's the same race. They are us. And certainly we must try. That is a very great, very noble gesture of yours. And certainly we must know about it. And we must also help our Indian diaspora, not only Kashmir.
no,
Indian,
it's
we must do philanthropy in India because India is our country. It's our
absolutely.
nation. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. So, thank you,
any
Jugalji.
message, Archana ji, any message you want to give to the youth of Kashmiri Pandits, especially, and all the youth who are watching this program, not necessarily Kashmiri Pandits, as a very, very successful entrepreneur, a doctor, and president of an organization like KOA. I mean, anything you want to really you
Jugalji, I
see?
have to tell you that I am impressed with youth. I am impressed with their ability of juggling so many things. And youth here or there, they're so much smarter than us. I mean, at least from I can tell you, they're much smarter than me. And
Yes,
I learned from the youth, my KOA youth, and I asked them, for us, we have to make sure that we give them the platforms. It is very important we listen to the youth. If
yes,
we have to move forward, we have to listen to the youth. But for the youth, I have to tell them one thing certainly, that always respect what you have. Because the journey of Kashmiri Pandits, or any community for that matter, is because of the past. Our ancestors have
roots.
already worked hard, already created those avenues for us where we are. We were the beneficiaries of their hard work. Never forget that you are the beneficiaries of your parents, your grandparents, your community members who have worked hard, who have gone through the seventh Exodus just 35 years back and made possible that you stand on your 2 feet. And we never compromised on our children. No matter how hard it was for us, our children still got the best. So youth should never forget that we have just suffered an enormous a catastrophe just 35 years back. But
That's true.
we made sure that our youth did not suffer from that. They
History
have to
doesn't repeat.
understand that, they have to respect that. And parents like me have to also understand that we have to listen open mindedly to our children. So it's a partnership. We have to grow. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, but I will not. I mean, we'll conclude this on a very lighter note. Uh, the, the women personality which appealed to you most. One name, no two names.
Oh, can I say I could? Is it going to be Kashmiri or non-Kashmiri or anyone?
Anybody on the planet, anybody on the planet. Like Maya Angelou is my favorite. She's not a Kashmiri. She's not an Indian.
I
How
can
does
tell
that
you,
work?
two personalities, one woman and one man, who I always, basically Indira Gandhi for her courage and strength.
Courage and strength.
She was a woman. She had to handle a lot of challenges to become a leader, and those challenges, being an Indian woman, the landscape she had to cover in political circles. Very courageous woman. I respect her for that. My other favorite is Martin Luther King for
Ah, great
his
person.
compassion. I have a book of Martin Luther King always
Martin Luther
on my
King is one
desk,
of
and I'm telling you that if anyone, for that matter, has the person or the light, the beacon, if you have to go and look at someone for helping humankind, would be Martin Luther King. So these are my two
wonderful.
favorites, one for
Both are
courage,
wonderful
one
people.
for one for the what social service. I
You must be because you are an Indian woman and we are almost at the same age. You must be very fond of some movies from the past, from the future. Which is your best movie you really love? Hindi movie, not English. English बहुत बड़ा section है.
lots of movies, but I think that
No,
there were
one.
iconic. um Nargis in
Mother India,
Mother India. Mother India, by for me, is the best movie, and Nargis is one of the best leading actresses that I have loved.
legend and
Mother
actress.
India, by far.
I I I heard that you also sing sometimes. So why not to conclude this wonderful session? I don't think it was a taxing; it was a relaxing one. I tried to communicate in a very, informally formal way.
You're putting me into this, like people will say, "What is she doing?" They'll
I
remember.
know. I mean, that's not open mind. You can sing if you have a talent. There, this RTG sang here, Archana ji sang. There were lot many people. My guests, they just had one liner rendition of one liner or two liner. You can do
Just
that,
one
and you can
line.
conclude at that. Yeah.
It's a I don't know who has written the song, but I have heard Kailash Mehra. She's my Didi. I call her Didi. So
Kailash ji will be coming. She's also coming to this show. I'll invite her.
is
Yeah.
she? Yeah, do tell her that I said namaskar, and I'll call her, and I call her Didi, and she always blesses me.
Okay.
And so that's the relationship I have with them. And for that matter, most of them, RTG, she's my older sister.
Shamima.
And Shamima, so I have not personally known her, but
Shamima
of
ji
course,
could not come because her health was not good. She had an operation.
always
Otherwise, she was supposed to come. Yeah.
always grew up with her songs, and now we have Neerja ji and all that. So I'm very close to every one of them. Archana, Jalali ji, I know them on a personal level, always. So I feel terrible that I have to sing in when I'm naming all these legends, but I'm going to say a few.
Oh,
I'm just gonna
probably. I mean, singing. One should sing. Sing is something which the song comes from the soul, so it's an
That's
expression
true.
of soul, nothing else.
Okay, so I'm going to sing this Bedard Chan, Dadi Chan. Do you know that song?
Ah, the beautiful one.
बेदर्द दादी जाने सूर हो सपदा नम अति Hmm. I don't know the words. प्यारो लो लो अतिथि दोस्तो जय कथ बोस्तो सरहा वंदे सर दारो लो लो बेदर्द दाद जाने. That's it.
Thank you very much, Archana ji. It was a great session. Rather a heart-storming session. We have the constraints of time and format. Otherwise, we would have continued for more time. But it's already 2.25. I mean, this period, hours have passed by, and certainly it was very engaging. So time ka pata nahi laga. So
That's
it's
true.
so great, so pleasured, so honored that you were part of Sheetanath Conversations today's show. I think this show is available on YouTube as well as as well as Facebook group, and people can watch it, the recorded version. So I think with that, I would like to end today with a great thanks to you. My pleasure, my honor that you came and had been the part of this great show. All the best for your great endeavors as a KOA president, as to your family, Kapru Sahab, and relatives and the other families you have developed, and your great visionary work, which we really like to be very inspired by, and let you be there to lead all the people, guide all the people in the community and natives from India. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Jugalji. It was my pleasure, my honor to be here. Bishasani pan yami program through Yatsan Karo Namaskar. Yim Sarim program. Buchanchi man tarfa Gulgandit Namaskar. As Chusani Bront Kun Pakun. And we all have to have one vision in mind, and that's to pull our community up, higher up, and be together and one. So, with that, namaskar, and thank you so much, Jugalji, for giving me this opportunity. And it was a great program. I got to talk about things from my heart today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So that was Dr. Archana Kokroo, and I hope you loved the session. And we went crisscross through the entire panorama of Kashmir, and then her life in the med school in Kashmir, Government Medical College, her memories of the Shupayan, her native land, and then the post-migration trauma she faced with all of us in Jammu in those dingy rooms, and then finally her escape to the USA, and as a professional, her career, and then supporting and being part of this conglomerate known as Kashmiri Overseas Association, to it to which it was she was elected consecutively second time as its president. So that is something which is very unique about her personality, and I'm really delighted that she was. I really liked her everything, and with that, I would like to say that we'll wait for another wonderful session at Shitanath Conversations. I'm very grateful to all of you for following, heartily adoring, respecting the concept and the theme of Shitanath Conversations. I think we are going to, till the time we are going to remain engaged in the human existence, we are going to continue with this conversation on Shitanath Conversation. I would like to conclude with one couplet. अहले दिल और भी है, अहले वफा और भी है, अहले दिल और भी है, अहले वफा और भी है, एक हम ही नहीं दुनिया से खफा और भी है, अहले दिल और भी है, अहले वफा और भी है, एक हम ही नहीं दुनिया से खफा और भी है, हम पे ही ख़त्म नहीं मसलक के शोरीदा सारी, चाके दिल और भी है, चाके काबा और भी है, क्या हुआ अगर मेरे यारों की ज़बानें चुप हैं, मेरे शाहिद मेरे यारों के सिवा और भी है. With that wonderful couplet from none other than Sahir Ludhianvi, my favorite poet of this continent, wonderful human being, I would like to conclude today's show. Thanks all. I'm grateful once again. Indebted. Good night.